Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the stillness. That is the doorway to the power that moves the stars and spins the earth. In that silence, there is a secret, a truth so simple the mind overlooks it, and yet so powerful it reshapes all of life. Give it to God. Stop worrying. He will do the impossible. You were never asked to carry the weight. You were asked to believe. You were never meant to figure out the how, only to know in the deep silence of your being that it is done. That what you have asked for already is in another dimension, in a higher realm, waiting to crystallize into form. Worry is the child of doubt. It is the conversation of the world that believes it must make everything happen by force, by fear, by frantic movement. But the inner man, the true self, knows better. He knows that imagination is the secret place of the Most High. He knows that what is conceived within is made real without. If only you will not disturb the seed with anxiety. The moment you surrender your desire to God, to the I am within, you give it life. You hand it over to the part of you that is beyond limitation, beyond effort, beyond the laws of this world. But if you take it back with worry, you halt the process. You dig up the root to see if it's growing. You delay what was already guaranteed. You must learn the art of inner stillness. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and let that feeling become your secret dwelling place. When you walk through your day, walk as though the answer has already come. When you lie down at night, let sleep carry you into the dream where it is already so. Do not try to make it happen. Rest in the knowing that it already has. There is no power outside of you that needs to be convinced. The power is within you, waiting for your surrender. Not surrender in weakness, but surrender in faith. Faith is not hoping, it is knowing. Knowing that what you have imagined is the voice of God speaking through you. Knowing that what you feel in the silence is the seed of your miracle. What men call impossible is only a label placed upon things the senses cannot yet perceive, but the imagination is not bound by sight, nor by time, nor by logic. It sees from the end, it hears the unseen, it moves, the spirit moves, free, fluid, fearless. When you align with that inner world, the outer must conform. So stop asking when, stop begging, stop repeating the same prayers as though God has not heard. He heard you the first time. The moment the desire rose in you, the answer was born. Now let go, rest, feel it done, and carry yourself with the peace of one who knows that the universe is rearranging itself right now to bring you the impossible. This is not fantasy. This is the truth that sets you free. Give it to God. Then dare to live as though it's already yours, because it is. Do not be deceived by appearances. The world with all its forms and facts is but a reflection of your inner state. It is not causative. It does not move first. What you see and experience is the echo of what you have accepted as true within. And so when you begin to worry, when you pace the floor or rehearse problems in your mind, you are affirming the very reality you wish to change. You are planting the same seed again and wondering why it bears the same fruit. There must come a moment when you say, enough. I have tried with my effort. I have struggled with my reasoning. I have exhausted my mind searching for a way. And now I turn within. I release this desire, not into the air, not into the hands of fate, but into the spirit that gives life to all things. I give it to God. I give it to that eternal presence within me, the source and sustainer of all creation. When you truly give it to God, you stop asking whether it's working. You stop checking for evidence. The farmer does not dig up the soil each day to see if the seed is sprouting. He trusts the process. He waters. He waits. He knows the nature of the seed. In the same way, your imagination is the womb of creation. When you impress it with a feeling of fulfillment and leave it there in peace, the harvest is certain. The mind that is still and trusting is the mind that commands reality, not by force, not by willpower, but by alignment. The universe responds not to your panic, but to your peace. That inner state is the magnet. What you truly feel to be real becomes your experience, not through toil, but through law. You were not designed to carry burdens. You were designed to create through vision and faith. Worry wears down the mind, clutters the heart, and blinds the eyes to opportunity. But when you release, when you let the I am within take the lead, you move differently. You walk in rest. You speak with confidence. You act not out of desperation, but out of inspired knowing. There is a vast difference between wanting and knowing. Wanting looks outward and sees lack. Knowing turns inward and finds completion. One begs, the other declares. One waits for a sign, the other becomes the sign. You must practice this shift daily, moment by moment, until it becomes your natural state, until giving it to God is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle of divine partnership. You are not alone. You were never meant to be. That longing in your heart, that picture in your mind, that desire rising again and again, it is not random. It is the voice of God within you, reminding you of what is already yours in the eternal. The desire is the preview of coming fulfillment, but it is yours only when you believe, when you receive it in consciousness, when you assume it without evidence, and persist without fear. You must learn to see with the inner eye. Close your eyes and imagine it done. Feel the joy of having. Hear the congratulations, the laughter, the peace. Let it saturate your being. Let it become so vivid that when you open your eyes, the outer world feels like the illusion. Then, and only then, does the power move on your behalf. It is not your job to know how it will come. That is the domain of spirit. The how is never your concern. The method, the means, the sequence of events, these belong to a higher order. Your only work is to remain faithful to the end vision, to the feeling of the fulfilled desire. That feeling is the prayer. That assumption is the signal. And when it is strong and unwavering, the impossible becomes inevitable. Many grow weary because they plant the seed and then worry it into stillness. They try to force the tree to grow by shouting at the soil. But this is not the way of divine creation. Divine creation is gentle. It is quiet. It is confident. It knows the law. It knows the promise is sure. So it waits in peace and moves only when moved from within. To give it to God is not a passive act. It is the most powerful choice you can make. It is a declaration of faith in the unseen, a refusal to bow to appearances. It is choosing to believe the report of spirit over the noise of the senses. It is walking into your day as if the doors have already opened, even when they are still closed to the eye. Faith is not blind. Faith sees what the eye cannot. It sees the higher truth. It sees the blueprint before the building, and it rests in that seeing. It trusts that what is real in spirit must become real in form. Just as surely as the dawn follows the night. You may say, but I've waited so long. Yes, but have you waited in faith or in fear? Have you rested in the fulfillment or rehearsed the failure? There is a difference. True waiting is active. It is rich with inner experience. It is alive with thanksgiving. It is creative. It prepares the space for what is to come. It rejoices before the blessing arrives, knowing it cannot be denied. Gratitude is the language of trust. When you are truly grateful for what you have not yet seen, you announce to the universe that it is already yours, and that vibration, that frequency is what draws the outcome to you without delay, not because you earned it, not because you forced it, but because you aligned. Stop watching the clock. Time is not your master. Spirit is not bound by dates and deadlines. What seems delayed is not denied, it is being perfected. There are things being arranged behind the scenes that you could never calculate. People are being moved, doors are being unlocked, paths are being cleared, all because you dared to believe. If only you could see the machinery of heaven working in your favor, you would never doubt again. You would laugh at fear, you would stand taller, you would speak with greater authority. You would rest not in resignation, but in dominion. You are not begging God to do something He has not yet decided. You are agreeing with what He has already spoken. You are stepping into the finished work. The desire was placed in you because its fulfillment already exists in spirit. You are not creating something from nothing. You are revealing what already is. And how do you do that? Through your assumption, through your inner speech, through your faithful imagination. Every time you imagine the end fulfilled, you are fertilizing the seed. Every time you feel it real, you are watering the dream. And every time you give thanks in advance, you are accelerating the manifestation. This is not wishful thinking, this is the law. This is how creation has always worked. All things begin and end in consciousness. What you accept as true becomes your reality, not because you forced it, but because you believed it. So again, I say, give it to God. Hand over the weight, the timeline, the logic, the fear. Let it go. And as you do, feel the shift. Feel the peace return. Feel the inner knowing begin to rise. That is your confirmation. That is your signal. That is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Do not chase after signs. Do not look to the outer world to validate your faith. Let the outer catch up to the inner. Let the echo follow the sound. If you've spoken it in faith, it must return fulfilled. That is the promise. That is the covenant. When the worry rises, remind yourself, I've given it to God. I've placed it in the safest, surest hands. And because of that, I will not fear. I will not doubt. I will not rehearse the problem. I will rehearse the promise. I will rehearse the end. I will live from the outcome. And I will move through my day with the confidence of one who knows the impossible is already becoming possible. Not someday, now. Not when all the conditions line up, but because I have aligned within. This is the great secret. Give it to God. Let it go. Assume it done and watch. Watch as the unseen becomes seen, as the divine answers before you even finish the prayer, as the impossible bends its knee before the power of your faith. There is a power in stillness that cannot be overstated. When you stop striving, when you cease from your laboring and sit in quiet confidence, you activate the highest law, not by pushing, but by yielding, not by effort, but by expectancy. For what you expect with conviction shapes the invisible mold into which life must pour itself. Every emotion, every assumption, every inner conversation, these are your tools, your brushes, your sculptor's hands. And yet, how many live as beggars, pleading for change, when all they must do is receive? Not with clenched fists, but with open hands. Not with a mind full of noise, but with a heart full of knowing. You must become the thing you seek. You must walk as though it is already yours, not in arrogance, but in the deep humility that comes from spiritual certainty. You say, but I don't feel it. then sit with it longer. Dwell in the scene until it becomes more real to you than what your senses report. Reality is not what the eyes see, it is what the Spirit accepts. And if you can accept your desire as already fulfilled, then you have touched the mind of God. You have entered the creative state, and in that state all things are possible. Nothing is withheld from you except by your own resistance, not by punishment, not by delay from some distant force, but by your own divided attention, your own double-mindedness. You want it, but you fear it. You pray for it, but you doubt its arrival. You visualize the dream, but then you speak against it with words of frustration and disbelief. And so the power is interrupted, the current breaks. But when the mind is single, when it is clear, focused, surrendered, then the power flows without friction. Then the invisible path opens beneath your feet. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, speaking the right words without trying to force a thing. You are moved, not moving, guided, not guessing, carried, not chasing. This is the ease you were made for. This is the grace that flows from true surrender. Giving it to God is not the same as forgetting about it. It is remembering, but remembering rightly. It is holding the end in your heart without needing to manage the middle. It is saying, I see the finished work. I live in it. I celebrate it. And I trust the divine intelligence within me to orchestrate all the details. You will know you've truly let go when peace becomes your atmosphere, when joy begins to bubble up for no apparent reason, when your inner world grows louder than the noise of your circumstances. That is the evidence of faith. That is the birth of the miracle. The world will try to convince you that you must fight, hustle, worry, and strain, but that is the path of the natural man, bound to the senses. The spiritual man creates differently. He speaks what is not as though it is. He calls the invisible into form through belief. He uses imagination as his instrument and trust as his foundation. If only you could understand what has already been prepared for you. If only you could comprehend that what you long for exists now, fully formed in another dimension of being, and the only bridge from there to here is belief. Not blind belief, but active, living belief. A belief that shows up in how you speak, how you walk, how you think, how you rest. What you do in the silence matters more than what you do in the crowd. What you entertain in the privacy of your heart is the blueprint for what will appear in your life. You cannot hide your dominant state. Life will reflect it back to you again and again until you choose differently. Until you choose to align, to harmonize, to trust. And trust is not timid. It is bold. It acts before the evidence. It sows before the season. It builds the ark before the rain. To trust God is to stop playing small, to stop shrinking your vision to match your bank account or your background, to stop measuring possibility by history or statistics. The power in you does not answer to numbers. It answers to faith. You are not waiting for God. God is waiting for you to believe, to stop circling the same doubt, to stop speaking against your own prayer, to stop looking for signs of failure when all you need to do is declare success, to stop watering the weeds with worry and start watering the promise with praise. Praise is the song of those who have already received in the Spirit. It is the melody of those who see what the eye cannot. It confuses the logic of man, but unlocks the vault of heaven. Praise, even before the manifestation, is one of the highest demonstrations of trust. When you praise, you lift your vibration. You rise into alignment with the thing desired, and from that height, miracles rush toward you with unstoppable momentum. The one who has given it to God does not need constant reassurance. He does not beg. He does not pace the floor. He builds the nursery before the child comes. He sets the table before the guests arrive. He prepares in faith, because preparation is the clearest signal that you believe the answer is on its way. God cannot lie. The I am within you cannot be mocked. It brings forth what is spoken, what is imagined, what is emotionally accepted as true. So when you say, I am whole, and you feel it, it becomes flesh. When you say, I am provided for, and you carry that knowing with you, the supply appears. When you say it is done and you mean it, the universe begins to rearrange itself in obedience to your word. Speak life, speak truth, speak only what you desire to see, and then walk away not in indifference but in confidence, like a master artist who lays down his brush knowing the work is finished, like a composer who hears the music in his soul before a single note is played. This is the posture of the awakened soul. Let the world call it delusion. Let others scoff. You need no agreement but your own. You need no permission to believe. You stand on holy ground when you trust the vision God has written upon your heart. The world may say impossible, but the law says inevitable. For what you see within must echo without. You may be tempted to doubt, to second guess, to check again. That is the old way. That is the path of those who live by sight. But you live by faith. You close your eyes and see the end. You hold that image with reverence. You let it fill your lungs, your bones, your very cells. You let it guide your steps, fuel your words, shape your thoughts. And in doing so, you become the miracle you once hoped for. Do not fear the silence. That is where the greatest work is done. In the hidden place, in the unseen realm, beneath the surface, roots are growing, plans are forming, alignments are taking place, and all the while, your only task is to stay faithful, to keep your inner altar lit with praise and expectation, to let the outer catch up to the inner, to stop asking when and start saying thank you. Thank you not because it's coming. Thank you because it's done. Thank you because it is settled in spirit. Thank you because the word has gone forth and cannot return void. Thank you because the impossible has already bowed to the name you carry. Give it to God and don't take it back. Not with anxious thoughts, not with controlling behavior, not with fear disguised as planning. Leave it where it belongs. In the hands of the Creator who knows no limitation, no impossibility, no lack. And walk away with the lightness of one who knows the ending has already been written. That is the secret. That is the law. That is the key that opens every door. Give it to God. Stop worrying. He will do the impossible. Because the impossible has no power against faith. Because your assumption is creative. Because your vision is divine, because your belief is the bridge that carries heaven to earth. There are those who believe that in order to receive, they must prove themselves worthy through effort, through penance, through constant striving, but the truth is far more radical, far more liberating. Worthiness was never the question. You were worthy the moment the desire was born in you, not because of what you've done or failed to do, but because of what you are. You are the vessel of the divine imagination. You are the dreamer through whom God sees. You do not need to convince God to move on your behalf. He has already moved. The moment you felt the desire, the answer was given. The moment you saw it in your mind's eye, it was complete in the invisible. It is done, final, finished. And now, your only work is to align your thoughts, your emotions, your entire inner world with that unseen reality. That is what it means to live by faith. Not to hope faintly for a thing, but to know it, to assume it, to embody it. There is nothing more powerful than an individual who has chosen to live from the end, One who no longer asks, will it happen, but says instead, it has happened, and I'm simply walking into the evidence of it. That one cannot be shaken. That one cannot be dissuaded by delay, for they no longer see time as a threat. They understand that what is held faithfully in imagination must come, and that time is simply the servant of belief, not its master. You are the doorway through which the unseen becomes seen. The infinite seeks to express through you, not around you, but it can only do so to the extent that you allow it, not by pleading, but by yielding, not by worrying, but by receiving. And receiving is not passive, it is active in the realm of consciousness. It is choosing again and again to think only from the place where your desire is already fulfilled. Do not say, I'll believe it when I see it. Say, I believe it, therefore I will see it. The world has trained you to look outside for validation, but the Spirit speaks in reverse. It begins in the inner chambers of thought and feeling. That is the true cause. The outer is merely the shadow, the echo, the outpicturing of what you have already accepted within. You may say, but how do I know it will happen? You know it the same way you know you are alive. You feel it. You sense it in the stillness. You catch the rhythm of it like a familiar song returning to your memory. And once that song is playing within, you do not ask again. You hum it as you move through your day. You live with the melody in your bones. There is no striving in God's way. There is only surrender, but surrender is not defeat, it is power. It is the most confident stance a human being can take to say, I no longer need to make this happen. I rest in the knowing that it is. This is the mind of a creator. This is the heart of one who walks with God. Fear whispers, it's too big. Faith replies, it is already done. Doubt says, you've never seen anything like this before. But the Spirit answers, it doesn't matter. I see it now in the inner realm, and that is all that is required. Every great act of creation began this way, with a vision, a declaration, and a refusal to yield to what appeared to be true. What appears is not always what is. The senses report a temporary version of reality. But what you hold in imagination is eternal. It does not fade, it does not change. It awaits only your consistency. Every time you feel the desire as though it were fulfilled, you are feeding the roots beneath the surface. Every time you return to that inner scene, you are watering the invisible. And soon the outer must comply. You cannot resist the force of a sustained inner knowing. This is not a trick, it is not magic, it is law. The same law that governs the sunrise, the seasons, the orbits of the planets. It is the law that what you assume to be true becomes fact. Not immediately, but inevitably. And in that inevitability, you must learn to rest. To rest does not mean to be inactive. It means to be anchored. It means to move only when moved by inspiration. It means to walk forward, not in frantic motion, but in quiet certainty. And that certainty carries with it a frequency that changes rooms, opens doors, and stirs unseen forces into action. There is nothing too hard for God, and if God is within you, then there is nothing too hard for you when you align with that truth. The only thing standing in your way is the thought that something is in your way, and once that thought is dropped, the mountain crumbles. You are not here to struggle and survive. You are here to create, to imagine, to embody the desires of your heart until they take on flesh. And how do you do this? By becoming the version of you who already has it. Not someday, now. How does that version think, speak, act, walk? You must take on the role completely, as though you were an actor stepping into a part. Not pretending, but being. You cannot hold two identities at once. You must release the old before the new can take hold. You must say goodbye to the version of you that worries, doubts, and fears. That version cannot walk into the promised land. Only the one who has rested in the finished work can pass through. Only the one who has released the outcome and taken on the state of the answer can see the answer unfold. The moment you stop rehearsing the problem and start rehearsing the solution, everything begins to shift. Your posture changes, your language changes, your decisions align with a new timeline. People respond to you differently. Doors you didn't even knock on begin to swing open, not because you forced it, but because you became it. This is the mystery hidden from the ages, that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Not above, not beyond, not later, but within. And when you enter that kingdom through your imagination, when you dwell there consistently, when you feel at home in the reality of your fulfilled desire, then the world outside has no choice but to conform. Your job is not to push the river. Your job is to remove the dam, to clear away the mental and emotional blocks that say it can happen, to dismantle the inner argument that keeps replaying lack, delay, or impossibility. You don't need to move the mountain. You need only to stop believing in the mountain. Everything you want is already here, vibrating at a frequency that you must attune to. You tune into it by feeling it real, by praising in advance, by assuming it until it becomes so natural that the old story no longer even tempts you. You are not being tested, you are being invited to trust in a higher way, invited to participate in the divine order, invited to surrender your effort and accept grace. But grace does not operate in worry. It moves freely only when the vessel is open through faith, through gratitude, through surrender. There is no limit to what can happen when you live from the end. Healing can appear in a moment. Finances can shift overnight. Relationships can be restored without a single conversation. The impossible becomes possible, not by external force, but by internal. The world cannot stop the one who walks in alignment, for that one is not reacting to life, but creating it. That one does not seek signs, because he is the sign. That one does not ask for proof, because she is the evidence. That one does not delay in fear, but moves in boldness, trusting the unseen. And all of this becomes available the moment you truly give it to God. Not in word alone, but in spirit and in truth. When you stop arguing for your limitations, when you stop rehearsing the old facts, when you stop clinging to how and when, and you simply know that it is done, then the whole universe begins to bend in your favor. Do not underestimate the power of one quiet, determined soul who has made a decision. It is mine. I have received it. I will live as though it were so. That one becomes unstoppable. That one begins to draw the right people, opportunities, and resources, not by chasing them, but by embodying the outcome. So return again to that secret place within. Return as often as it takes, not to wish, but to feel, not to beg, but to know, not to wait, but to walk in it. Let the old self fall away with every breath. Let the new state be your identity. Speak from it, move from it, live from it. And above all, refuse to worry. Worry is the admission that you have taken back what you gave to God. It is the sign that you no longer trust the process. But you were not made to worry. You were made to believe. You were not designed to chase. You were designed to attract. You were not placed here to merely survive. You were placed here to create, to expand, to overflow with the goodness of the unseen made visible. So give it to God and leave it with Him. Rest in the knowing, dwell in the vision, walk in the end. Feel the reality of it. Speak only from the place of fulfillment and watch. The impossible will bow to your faith, not because you forced it, but because you believed. It begins in the stillness, always in the stillness, not in the noise of the world or in the frantic search for solutions, but in that quiet space within where the whisper of the divine can finally be heard. That is where creation begins. That is where the impossible becomes not only possible, but promised. And in that space, you are reminded again, it is not your burden to carry. It is not your battle to fight. Give it to God and then really give it. Don't leave it on the altar only to pick it up again in the next moment with anxious thoughts and fearful words. When you truly release it, when you fully surrender the desire into the hands of the one who gave it to you in the first place, something shifts. The weight lifts, the tension breaks, a strange, unfamiliar peace rises in you. That peace is the evidence, that peace is the confirmation that creation is underway, not outside of you, but within you and through you. You must understand that God does not withhold. The divine is not keeping good things from you to teach you a lesson or to test your patience. The only delays are within your own consciousness. The only obstacles are the ones you have agreed to believe in. When you stop rehearsing your doubts and begin rehearsing the promise, you begin to see clearly. You begin to move differently. There is a divine order that responds to your state of being. Not your wish, not your need, but your state. What are you embodying? What do you carry in your inner world, moment to moment? That is what matters. That is what shapes your life. More than all the prayers you speak aloud, more than all the actions you take in desperation, the state you live in is the magnet of your reality. If you say, I believe, but inwardly still feel panic, fear, or lack, the world will echo the truth of your inner contradiction. But when your inner world becomes fully persuaded, when your imagination and your emotions are aligned in the fulfillment of your desire, then nothing can stand in the way. Creation has already happened, and the outer world must catch up. This is not about positive thinking. This is about spiritual law. The law that says you cannot experience anything in the outer world that you have not first entertained in the inner one. So ask yourself, not what do I want, but what am I accepting as real? Am I walking in the world as if the answer has already come? Am I carrying myself with the calm confidence of one who knows the outcome is guaranteed? To give it to God is to step out of the realm of manipulation and control. It is to stop trying to force, bargain, and scheme. It is to stop praying out of fear and start creating out of faith. It is to speak not with pleading, but with the quiet authority of one who knows that God lives in them, not separate or distant, but present, active, immediate. If you knew that the very Spirit of the Almighty was forming your reality through every thought and feeling you hold, how carefully would you think? How consciously would you feel? You would no longer permit worry to linger. You would no longer allow doubt to have a voice. You would become fiercely protective of your inner world, not from fear, but from reverence. This is the discipline of faith. It is not passive. It is not idle. It is a sacred tending to the fire within. It is choosing again and again to come back to the vision, to see it, feel it, live in it, not just once a day, but continually until it becomes your new dwelling place, until the state of fulfillment is so normal to you that the old self, the old story, the old fear no longer feel like home. You cannot receive something new while clinging to the identity of the one who lacks it. The version of you who lives in lack cannot enter the life of abundance. The version of you who worries cannot inherit the peace that passes understanding. The version of you who keeps looking to the problem cannot see the solution standing right in front of them. So the shift must happen inside. You must become it before you see it. You must walk as the healed before the healing is visible. You must speak as the successful before the success arrives. You must feel as the love before the relationship appears. And when you do, life reorganizes itself to meet you where you are. The world is not your enemy. It is not resisting you. It is responding to you. It is mirroring back to you the assumptions you hold, the stories you believe, the identity you inhabit. Change the root and the fruit must change. That is the promise, that is the process, that is the peace that comes when you finally let go of the fight and let God. And yet letting go is not laziness, it is not passivity. It is fierce trust. It is deep alignment. It is radical faith that says, even though I cannot see it, I know it is working for me. Even though the evidence hasn't yet shown itself, I rejoice now because I have received it in spirit. That joy is not optional. It is the vibration that matches your answered prayer. Worry never accomplishes anything. It only repeats the past in the disguise of a future. It plays the same movie over and over again, expecting a different ending. But when you shift into trust, you begin a new script. You flip the page, you turn the light on, and that light reveals what has been waiting for you all along. Everything you've ever asked for is already finished in God. You are not waiting on Him. He is waiting on you. To believe, to receive, to allow. The delay is not a denial, it is a doorway, a sacred pause for you to align with the truth that the thing you seek is already yours. And once you are in agreement with that truth, you will find yourself in the flow. Things will begin to happen without your effort. Doors will open without your knocking. Opportunities will rise like the tide, effortless, graceful, divine. But it starts with a decision, a simple, profound decision to let it go, to stop treating God like a faraway force that must be bargained with, to stop treating your desire like something impossible, to stop treating your imagination like a child's game and start recognizing it for what it truly is, the place where God speaks. Your imagination is the language of spirit. It is the divine tool of creation. It is not fantasy, it is prophecy. What you dwell on within, you will dwell in without. So honor it, use it, return to it with reverence. Build the inner temple until it feels more real than the outer world. And when that happens, when you can walk through your day with that image clear in your heart and that peace strong in your chest, the manifestation will be inevitable. It cannot not come. That is how law works. It cannot fail because it was never dependent on the world. It was never dependent on who approves of you or who doubts you or how things look today. It was only ever dependent on what you believe, what you truly, deeply, unwaveringly believe. So don't check the clock. Don't ask how long. That question belongs to the old self. That question is rooted in fear. The new you does not ask when. The new you lives in now. Now it is done. Now it is mine. Now I walk as one who has received, and that walk will carry you right into the reality you once only imagined. Give it to God. Speak the end. Feel the joy. Live from the vision. And every morning you wake, return to that truth like a song. It is done. It is done. It is done. Let that be your rhythm, your breath, your certainty. And in time, perhaps sooner than you ever expected, the world will rise to meet your inner decree. What was once a prayer will become your present. What was once a hope will become your history. What was once impossible will stand before you as the natural result of spiritual law. All because you gave it to God and you believed. So now stand firm, not in striving, but in stillness. Let your soul rest in the truth you've claimed. What you have seen within is already yours. What you have surrendered, God has already answered. And what you carry now in faith will soon clothe itself in form.